Just because I love you, it don't mean I trust you. Everybody not to be trusted. Everybody around me thugging. Everybody around me drugging. Everybody around me hustling. Everybody know not to bring no new riggin' around me. They say I be bugging. Got racks in the go-yard luggage. Just because I love you, it don't mean I trust you. Everybody not to be trusted.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Uncut with Q, and I'm your host, Quentin Flores. Guys, I'm so excited. Today, this has actually been something we've been talking about. It's been in the making, and I love doing these episodes. If this is your first time listening, we have a fee for the show. It's very simple. If you get value from the show, all we ask is that you tell someone about it, you like it, subscribe, share the episode with somebody that you're really close to. That's pretty much it, man. And if you're watching this, guys, our goal is to bring you value. Today, I have an amazing guest. She's here in San Antonio, Texas, and we just met yesterday at the gym. But tell the whole world who you are. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, what's up, you guys? My name is Bri Aguilar. I am a personal trainer. I am founder of Muscle Mommy Club here in San Antonio, and my most favorite title that I hold and share is Mommy. I have been a personal trainer for about 6 to 7 years now, and I have found so much purpose and passion through this journey, and along the way I've experienced a lot of like pain, trials, tribulations, who doesn't, but with the journey it's just become a lot of beautiful things unfolding, and I'm excited to dive into it today.
It's been awesome, like watching the journey from afar. I connected with you on Threads, and then I followed you afterwards. We talked about doing this podcast earlier this year, but I just got it back up and running again. My friend Yami's helping me as a DJ on the other side, and it's just like, I just feel like the stars aligned when we talked yesterday. Literally. I feel like we had such a great conversation.
Truly.
And I wanted to ask you about this because I know that I saw you were training someone while you were there. This Muscle Mommy thing, what inspired you to start that?
Yeah, so aside from my own personal training business, I decided last year to create a club called Muscle Mommy Club, and it wasn't called that. At first it started like hot mommy walks at the Pearl.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of run clubs, and I've torn my ACL and I have had 2 surgeries on that, so running hasn't really been a part of my fitness journey for a really long time. So I was like, well, there's no walking club, so I'm just going to start a walking club. So that's how it started. Through that walking club, there was just so many beautiful experiences shared that often go overlooked and missed. And a lot of women felt like they were alone. And I started to see that when we came together through community, there was so much power in that, and so along the way, the term muscle mommy is so widely known, but I was like, you know what? A lot of people think it's mommy. Since I'm a mom, they relate it to like, oh, it's just for moms. It's a group for moms. Yeah. It's not, like Latin mommy, Miami mommy, like kind of like that kind of, yeah. And so that there's kind of like that misunderstanding sometimes, like of women being like, well, if I'm not a mom, can I go? I say, yeah, it's for all women. So, I just felt like I needed to clarify that. But the purpose and the passion started with my own personal story of creating something that I needed when I was going through my own stuff, whether that was divorce, whether that was single parenting, co-parenting, just recently now, a miscarriage that I shared with you, that just happened this past week. All of these stories, while some unfortunate, tend to bring us together in a way that isolation can never do. And so being a personal trainer, I just decided to, instead of doing mixers at bars and things like that, let's do something that will benefit us in our physical form, to then lead into our spiritual and emotional journeys. And that's basically where that purpose came for me, and to see it grow within the year has been just something so organic. And I love to talk, I love to share, and I've always felt like an oversharer, but I feel like God put that in me because that testimony, that transparency, like a miscarriage, let's just say, a lot of women go through it, as I found out after sharing my story on Instagram, but not many talk about it.
It's hard to be vulnerable about it too. Honestly, I really applaud you for being vocal about real things that people go through and sharing from personal experiences as well.
Right.
Because as fitness, so I think for a lot of people, when you I'll be honest with you, going into Warhouse, one of my favorite gyms here in San Antonio, Texas.
Absolutely.
My friend Adam owns it. You guys got to follow it. It's Warhouse Gym SA on Instagram. I'll probably drop the tag in the description. What you'll notice is that almost everybody there is super ripped. I mean, you got guys walking around with their shirts off.
Absolutely.
You got girls that are just like six-pack showing, glutes just packing. It's just crazy to see it, right? But you can tell that people are very dedicated here, right? But fitness isn't just about the aesthetics. It isn't just about people who have already gotten there. It's about community and bringing each other up so that we can all be in the same alignment of just health and nutrition and living better lives fruitfully in what God has created us to do. And so like I had to learn that the hard way, because I would go to gyms when I was starting out the journey. And this is why I think it's so valuable that you do community, right? Because I didn't have one. I felt like a lone wolf. And when I would go to the gym, I felt like there were people that were looking at me weird because I couldn't fit inside of certain machines.
Right.
And I just felt so embarrassed, like all eyes were on me. And I really wish there was something like what you created back then for guys that were super overweight that were just trying to get their lives back.
Right.
You know, you'd be so surprised how many people were laughing at me in the gym as I was doing this. How many times I would post a motivational thing that I was doing in regards to the gym on the internet, just for people to comment like, "Fat boy, stay in the gym still," or like, "Oh, this is funny. The two pictures don't even look any different." And I would just be like, man, there's just some sad people out there that see things like this and they say that. And so like the fact that you're building a community and it's literally the foundation of pulling each other up, not just putting each other down, is, in my opinion, one of the greatest things that you could build for anybody in an industry where it's, I mean, I would feel like the fitness industry is like, there's so many people. I'm meeting a lot of them in San Antonio, you know, so like, what would you say separates what you do and what you bring to the table to, I guess, what anyone else is doing here in the industry?
Right. No, there are a lot of amazing trainers and a lot of people doing boot camps. And for me, I felt that imposter syndrome of, well, I don't want this just to be another boot camp. But, you know, when I started in-person training, so I would do online training for the past 6 to 7 years now, but in-person training is something that I recently started last year because I missed that interpersonal connection. I missed the hands-on guiding, teaching. There's a lot that can be done in person within the hour as opposed to online, right? And so as my clients started to also give me feedback, they're like, you know, there's so many other trainers out there, but I come to you because of what you offer, because of your heart, because of your spirit and your testimony, and you are exactly who I needed in this journey. And so for a lot of my clients, what I've seen a trend over is a lot of people find me when they are either about to go through something or in one of the most like lowest points in their journeys or sometimes in their lives, right? And at first I was like, am I even equipped to be able to show up? But then as time went on and I'm doing this mission and I'm have Muscle Mommy and I'm going through my own stuff, it's like I'm seeing that God aligned me perfectly for these people, you know, because within those one-on-one training sessions, there are tears shared. Sometimes my clients come in and they just can't, and I'll just give them a hug and we'll say a prayer and I'll share my testimony and we'll talk, and that's where that shared experience came. And then that's where that led to like, okay, I'm going to show up with the intention of whoever is meant to find me is going to find me. And I know once they are there, I'm going to do my absolute best to let them know that they are valued and loved when they're there. Because from my personal experience, I've showed up to things having a bad morning, having a bad like breaking news type thing, or whether that was a bad relationship or it was like a really bad argument where I didn't feel like loved or seen or something was going on, right? Then I've also left to those kinds of things, right? But then you show up and you're like, hey guys, how are you? You doing good? Like X, Y, and Z, you know what I'm saying? And so when someone is there, I do my best because I don't know what they're coming from and I don't know what they're going home to, you know? And so for me, our last Muscle Mommy boot camp at Pop Stroke, it went amazing, but I had just, you know, during that time, I was bleeding and I was like hemorrhaging from the miscarriage during the event. But
and you still pulled through.
And I still pulled through, and it was only
crazy.
Something that, you know, God can do. Like even right now, like I'm still cramping, still going through it. You know what I'm saying? But I saw a word from Stephen Furtick at Elevation Church, and he said, God promised to show up if I would, right? And our obedience to God during these times of trials and tribulations is just a way of showing everyone how we can gain strength and how he can carry our cross, you know? And so the thing that I preach is no matter what you're coming from or going home to right now in this present moment, be here, be intentional, you're loved and you're safe here, and that is just a mission that I just continue to push and preach, and goes over into my personal training as well, and so I just feel like that's kind of what distinguishes me a little bit. Not that no one else cares, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying from my own personal experience and my past and what I've been through, this is what I wish I would have had, and I'm just trying to create that.
You give that to other people, that which you haven't been given. And it's a crazy thing, I met a lady one time. She had a food prep company, and she did very well for herself. She had named it after her mother, who had been killed in a drive-by accident. Not accident, it was intentional, but the people had got the wrong house. And so when this happened, she had died, not that girl, but her mother had died holding them, her and her little brother, which they're the same age practically. And so what happened is that both of them, with the bad experience that they had in that situation, one decided to go off and become a business owner, the girl that I had met, and create a whole legacy in honor of what had happened to her mother, while the other one went off to do a bunch of drugs and go down the path of depression and anxiety.
And it's easy to do that.
And it is very easy to do that, but that's what's crazy about like the human experience. Although we have been gifted life and God has bestowed a purpose like upon us, right? What you'll notice is that when something traumatic happens to one person, it's choices that separate where you're going and where it is that you're staying, and that's the thing. And I love that what you're talking about right now, because you just went through something very traumatic. My heart's with you right now. Like, I totally feel you. I had gone through that about 3 times before getting my son, and it just, when I think back on it every single time, like I just remember how heavy that was and how excited I was to be a father.
You start to see that
now,
hope.
I could take that and I can use it to just do drugs or go into alcohol or drink. Just say to hell with fitness and let's just go eat whatever we want until we don't feel anything anymore. Which at one point, that was me. I was there. I was exactly in that moment. But people you got to decide. Like if you're listening to this right now and you're going through something, and we all want to implode sometimes, right. You got to do a production pivot where you take the things that are negative and you drive them into productive action to take you places that you've always wanted to go. Exactly. And they're on the other side of those traumatic experiences, because you're not your trauma. You're not the bad things that happen to you. You're the choices that you make and what you decide to do with what God has taken you through. Exactly. You know what I mean? And if you're not going to keep your eyes on the Lord in the middle of that storm, you're going to sink every time. And you might sink a few times, and I don't expect anybody listening to this to get it right?
No.
But even Peter sunk in the water when Jesus told him he could walk on it, right? And he didn't keep his eyes on the Lord. And although he was drowning, Jesus still pulled him out of that water and picked him up. Exactly. So we all get that chance no matter what, because we're all God's children. We're all loved the same. But it's what we do with that love. You know what I mean? Like, God's a gentleman. He ain't going to just walk into your house. You got to let him in. You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly.
I love that the foundation of what 80% of what we talked about so far on this podcast has been, because I don't get a lot of people that believe in God on this show. And I think that's honestly kind of sad when I really look at it. But I don't mind, because I introduce it to them a lot of times, because I'll start talking about faith. Exactly. But I've been noticing in almost 80% of the conversation that we've had right now is that you've been bringing up God a lot. How has that been important to your journey and what it is that you're currently doing with your business?
Everything that I'm doing now, especially experiencing what I just experienced, the way I look at it is like faith has brought me this far to fail me now. Right. And so it's, there have been times where I've questioned God and like, why this or why that, but why? But then I've always found that peace in knowing that, like, every time that I think I'm finished or he's finished with me, he's not. There always comes something that's like, I go through this, but then these like opportunities come, and it's hard to think of like a loss as something good, right? It's hard to like put that into perspective, because it's not good, but God will use the things that are meant to break you to propel you into something that he is meant to do. And I truly feel, like I said, I'm an oversharer, right? But I think he uses that gift for me to be able to not help women feel alone, or to help women not feel alone, And so, I feel I've gone to private school my entire life. So I've been introduced to faith my entire life. I went to a I guess non-denominational Christian school growing up, all the way up until high school. I went to a Catholic high school. A majority of my family practices like Catholicism and like all of it. But, I go to CBC and I love Pastor Ed. And, I've always just related to messages like that a lot more, because every time I go, it always seems to be something that I'm needing, something that I'm hearing. And so my mom, she is like one of the root one of the root reasons why I am the way I am too. Because her journey, when she was pregnant with me, she was bleeding every single day, all of it. She died when she had me. And then 5 minutes later, she got brought back to life. She talks about like a white horse and a Pegasus bringing her back, because she was like, I can't leave my baby. So it was more of like of a selfless act. Saw her entire life flash before her eyes, but she never talked about it because she didn't want to sound crazy. But then come to find out, there are a lot of other women who've experienced that too, right? Yep. And so with that, she always told me, I fought for you throughout my entire pregnancy so you can fight for others. And like you being here is not without purpose. So I've always seen my pain as purpose, and it's weird to kind of see it like that. But I just feel like everything in my life, even from clients who are older than me, they always ask how old I am. And I'm like, oh, well, like I'm 27, or at the time I was 24 or 25. And they're like, you're just so wise. And I'm like, and sometimes I'll joke like, yeah, it's the trauma. But, you got
to grow up pretty fast.
I had to grow up really fast. I got married at 19 years old. So grew up really freaking fast, and then moved.
Intense, man.
Yeah, like, wow. It was intense. Moved out to California, lived there for about 4 years, and then I got pregnant. And during my pregnancy is when COVID happened. So then I had to learn to navigate being a mom by myself, because my husband at the time was a Marine, and so he had to go back to doing what he had to do. And so I was just navigating like postpartum depression by myself, or how do I be a mom? I don't know. I don't have my mom with me, and like, not to her fault. She couldn't fly. There was no planes coming in or out,
I remember.
And that was just really tough. So that gave me the confidence to now, like, I could do it. That led me to being a better mom for me, because I had to rely on myself to figure it out. Right. And so all of these like circumstances and situations just kind of like prepped me to be able to help others. And that's just how I see it, So
I feel like God is just so present in your life. Just you talking about this,
Thank you.
And I can feel it. It's moving. Like when we were talking yesterday, it's just cool meeting somebody who shares that type of faith, because I understand like divine connections. We had talked about doing this podcast and like yesterday meeting, and now we're here doing it. It's like what?
Real quick turnaround.
Honestly,
yeah.
like I was like, all right, tomorrow, cool. And you were like, sure, I'll be there. I said, word. And now we're here, right?
And we're here.
And I think that, everything's divine timing. All of the things that have happened to you that had led up to this version of yourself that you're meeting is just divine timing consistently. And I'm a firm believer that, I don't think God's done breaking us sometimes.
No, I don't think so.
And the thing about the pain and the purpose, the thing that you mentioned, I mean, I've experienced that more times than I can count. I've had it all, and I've lost it all too. And I've been at the top, and I've been all the way at the bottom, man. I've been all the way at the bottom. I know exactly what it feels like to not know where I'm going to sleep the next day. I know what it feels like to take a bath inside of a restaurant because I hadn't showered in 4 days. I know what it's like to live out of a backpack with a pound of weed walking around and selling to homeless people. Wow. I know what it's like to get robbed and be at the top of my game at something and held down at gunpoint by the very people that I trusted. And so like it's things like that that build us into who we are. Absolutely. And so if we're going to look at our trials and our tribulations and whatnot, you see the blessing is always going to come after the breaking. And I remember the first sermon that I ever saw with Pastor Ed, because I know we both go to CBC. I love Pastor Ed. I had never been to that church before. I have had 4 other guests on this podcast tell me about this church as I talk about being reunited with faith and giving my life to Jesus, because I gave my life to Jesus November 4th of 2023.
Amen.
Up until then, I swear to you on everything, and I'll speak this before God himself, if I ever talked about God on a podcast, it was to get you to like me. It was to get you to trust me. Right. It was to get you to buy one of my products that I had for sale, to sell me your house even. I used God for my own personal financial gain.
Right.
Because I didn't actually believe. I just had an idea. I've always believed in a higher power, but I didn't really know if God or Jesus was real until I started to do the research, you know. But the first sermon that I ever went to was with Pastor Ed there. And I just remember I had a girl, her name was Giselle. She was on my podcast. She was like, what church do you go to? I said, I've been going to this place called City Church. It's great. Not really connecting. She was like, go to CBC. And I was like, you're like the third person that's told me. She was like, well, I'm going to tell you 5 more times. Go to CBC, go to CBC, go to CBC. I said, okay, cool. I get it. I'm going to go. She was like, go this Sunday. I'll save a seat at the front for you.
Yeah.
We're going to be there. So I went. And man, I mean, I tell you what, the production and everything, when you walk in, you're like, what is going on here, man? This is a concert or something.
You feel like it's one of those like mega churches, but it does not
It
give
doesn't
mega
feel
church.
like that
it feels
entirely.
very inclusive, and a lot of people are like, no, I don't go to the mega churches. I'm like, just go. It's not that. I promise you, it's not that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Pastor Ed has a way of connecting. There's been so many instances where there was a homeless person there, you know, and
I've seen that. I was there for that.
yes, like
Yeah,
it
that
went
was a
viral
very
on like
amazing
YouTube. It
moment.
was impactful. I was
Yes,
crying.
I was crying in the
oh
crowd
my
too. I was there.
Goodness.
I had, like, I'm telling you, the first time I ever went, I broke down in tears. And I remember he asked if you've really given your life to Jesus to stand up at the end. I repeated that prayer that he says at the end of every service, which I love. And I repeat it to myself all the time whenever
Right.
I'm in doubt.
Oh, right.
But it was about the feeding of the 5,000, where Jesus breaks bread and he shares, he's able to feed all these other people. And I remember he called it a Hebrew Happy Meal. And I just felt like I've never seen a pastor.
A Hebrew Happy Meal.
Yeah, and he had like a McDonald's Happy Meal in front of him, right? And he was just like, because this kid with childlike faith, because I know you and I have gone through some things. Like I can already tell, like you have had a crazy journey,
Yeah.
and still so much more that will come.
To endure.
Because when I was 27, I had made my first $1 million. And I thought I was at the top of my game.
I
Bri.
would too.
I thought I was the biggest dog. I stomp on the ground, the earth shatters beneath my feet. No one could have knocked me off my high. Because it was the first time in my life I ever proved people wrong. Everybody thought I was just going to be a drug dealer. Everybody thought that I was just going to be a punk. And I showed them that I could do something
And rightly
real.
so, with that confidence, you know.
And you know, I'll tell you what about ego, it can inflate and make your head 10 times bigger than it needs to be. And I just felt like in that moment I proved people wrong, and I was so proud of that, and I had it all taken away from me a year later. You know, and I don't think that God did that on purpose. Well, I know God did it on purpose. I'm saying is like, I don't think that, like, at the time I questioned, now I understand. And I was your age. So I couldn't imagine where you're going to be when you're my age, 35. 8 years from now is going to be a whole nother Bri. It's going to be a whole nother business. You might have your own facility one day. You might have a whole group of ladies that you're empowering to fitness, health, and to love themselves and to show
Yeah.
themselves how powerful they can be. Maybe even leading more people to Christ along the way, right?
Yeah.
Like I speak that over you. I see it. It's going to happen. But there's
What's
also going to
crazy,
be a
sorry
lot
not
of...
to cut you off, but I had that thought process too of like, that's just crazy that you speak that over me, you know?
I know
so thank
it.
you. I
I
appreciate
feel
that.
it. I see it. I just remember, like, in this moment, I'm like, man, but let me tell you what God did. God humbled me, and I lost it all. And I would make it back 20 times over, and then I lost it all again. And that was barely 3 years ago. And so I barely crawled out of that hole recently, you know, about like 6-7 months ago, finally out of a $20 million hole, you know, and I wanted to kill myself. Again. Like this
Yeah.
would be something that I would feel over and over and over again, right? But I couldn't imagine what you're feeling recently with what had just happened to you, you know? Like, that's hard to just accept when God brings you a tribulation.
Right.
It is so hard because you think that you're doing everything right, but you are still doing everything right. You are. It's just a part of your journey and something that we may never even understand.
No.
But he talked about this. He said, people want the blessing, but they don't want the breaking. You see, Jesus didn't just take the bread and then boom, duplicated it. He took the bread and then he broke it. And then it was duplicated and it fed 5,000 people.
Yeah.
So a lot of times God ain't breaking you to leave you in pieces. He's breaking you to duplicate you so the blessings can run it over. And
that's a
that
word.
was like the message. And I just remember in that moment, I was like, dude, Jesus is real. I'm feeling you finally. Like after
yeah.
all this time of looking for truth, I felt it in this building, you know, and it's just been the forefront of everything that I do.
Right.
So like, I really enjoyed that some of the first things that we talked about when we met yesterday was God, because that's the
Exactly.
center of everything for me right now.
100%.
I used to have a trap house pendant on my chest that I
Wow.
paid like 8 G's for.
Right.
I replaced it and I got the cross because this means more to me now. than what vanity used to be.
Right.
You know, I wanted the flashy cars. I wanted the status. I wanted all of it. And I got all of it, and I still felt empty.
Empty.
Because those are man-made things. The only thing that can truthfully fulfill you is the Lord. And until
Absolutely.
you understand that, almost everything that you do will fall because you're not building your businesses on kingdom principles.
Exactly.
And God laid that plan out for you,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I want to ask you about that, right? These kingdom principles you have in your business. I'm seeing them, you know? How is that impacting the gals that you lead? Do they see that you're a God-fearing woman as well? And do you kind of like show them, or do you show, like, do you not show? I'm wondering, like, give me a breakdown of what that's like for them.
I do. And the reason I know that is because they usually they normally vocalize it to me whenever it's like example, this past week, and I'm just using this past week because it's just very relevant to what's going on
of course.
now. But a lot of them have been like, I do not know how you're still here. I wouldn't be here. I'd be at home. And I was like, well, like, my purpose right now is to serve you. Like, and this is where God has me right now. And I was like, and I have a peace that only he can take, you know, peace in the chaos. And I feel like the slogan, God is great, God is good all the time. You know, God brings us to these points to where it's like, okay, I'm going to give you everything and everything's good. It's all kosher. It's good. Like, yeah, I'm good. But will you still praise me when I bring you to your knees too? You know, and will you still show up the way I need you to show up when not everything's going your way? And also, like, I move the way I move because one day my son's going to figure out who mom is. And I need to make sure that I am setting that example for him. If not anyone, it's me, because it starts at home, you know. And I just got out of a parent-teacher conference earlier today, and she just applauded the kid he was, you know, like very well-mannered, very kind, very gentle, very strong, but not malicious, like very just like, and she applauded, you know, my character, and I appreciated that. And so I know, like, my son calls me muscle mommy, right? And so it's super
great.
cute. Don't know how, like, he can't even read, but like, I'm like, can you read? Like, whenever he sees my logo, he just knows already. I've never taught him that. But, you know, with, you know, my podcast coming up, he had always told me, like, I want to get on your podcast. I want to talk about healthy foods. And he's 4. I want to talk about healthy foods. I want to talk about baseball because he loves the Dodgers. Like, all of these things like that he's seen me implement just from the physical form of eating protein. What do carbs do for you? Why should we work out? X, Y, and Z. It went into him. So why shouldn't my own habits and my perception about myself and how I show up, you know, one day he's going to face things, hopefully not as hard as I think as parents, we never wish that for our kids, but the world is what the world is. And sometimes they will, and it's inevitable.
Accepting of it, yes.
Yes. And he needs to know, like, okay, mom's telling me that. I saw that she did that. She has this testimony, just like the strength I gained from my mom. And we can keep going. We can keep showing up. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it's just in the way I continue to show up for them that, you know, in a situation such as this, I don't even know how I'm showing up. I don't even know how I'm sitting here and not crying, talking about it. But for me, I have peace in knowing that God has a greater plan for my life. And I might not see it now. The whole purpose for this might just be because of a testimony to help others heal. You know, like I told you yesterday, and the thing I shared with you was about miscarriage. It's like you did your duty as a parent. You fulfilled that by getting your baby to heaven, you know, and
Amen.
That wasn't even something I even like thought about. But had I not shared, would have never had that perspective,
Yep.
you know, and there's such a peace in knowing that my baby's there, you know, and okay, like now I gotta do my best to get mom there, you know, and all of the things. And so that fuels me more to show up and just do God's work, even when it feels like I can't. And we won't really know how great God is until he picks up a cross that we can't carry.
Amen. I love that perspective. Honestly, when you told me what you were telling me yesterday, I was crying for you, like Jesus. And I know you have your moments, man.
Yeah,
you might not have it
absolutely.
right now, but it hits. And when it does, it's like buckets later. And then it's like, okay, we understand what God is doing. We're just going to keep moving.
Right.
I think one of the things that I've noticed that you talked about is that you have a purpose-driven mindset, right? And I think that that's so hard to have given trials and tribulations that come. I want to know, how did you cultivate that within yourself? What was the driving factor where one day you just woke up and you were like, all right, I'm done walking for me. I'm walking in my purpose and what God is trying to do in my life. Because I think there's you talk about obedience, right? That's a hard thing for anybody to swallow. Most of the people who watch this show, a lot of them make a lot of money, like maybe even more than me. And a lot of them are entrepreneurs, business owners. A lot of them might even be fitness influencers. I just know that I get people from all walks of life.
Absolutely.
But the primary audience here are business owners. A lot of people are just doing things in real estate, or they have businesses, right? You know, maybe some of them are watching, haven't even found their purpose yet. They're just doing the mechanical part of being a human. Let's just go to work and make the money. Come home, fall asleep, go to work tomorrow, make the money. But you don't operate like that. I've noticed. I could just feel it, right? There's something deeper in there. I want to know, how did you discover your purpose in what it is that you're currently doing? And maybe you can help somebody else find that for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, it was just me and my mom, right? And so my coaches were really foundational and pivotal figures in my life. So by the time I was in middle school, I figured out that basketball was something that I wanted to do and wanted to pursue and go to college for. So, you know, my mom, bless her heart, she did all she could to get me to these camps and put me in these AAU teams, travel teams, all of it, you name it. I was there. Don't know how she did it, but somehow she did, right? And so my coaches, they were really very big on sharing their struggle and how they overcame it. And one of the mentalities that I just gravitated to was obviously like Mamba mentality. So Kobe's mentality of like showing up, being the hardest worker in the room. Kobe would work out till he blacked out, you know, like nothing was ever good enough for him, but in a more healthy way. Like you have to be obsessive with your craft in order to lead other people, you know, like, and you see that so many people are mimicking Kobe, not because of how many points he scored, but the work ethic that it took to get there. They saw the end, but people didn't see the journey, right?
Correct.
And so Kobe always talked about that. So whenever he would talk, I would listen, or whenever he came out with a book, I'd listen. And so I was just always like on YouTube, because there was really like no podcast at the time. So I was always on YouTube listening to like motivational like speakers, all of it, like in middle school and high school, you know, because I knew that like I just felt like I was like in a position to be a leader very early on, right? Also being short and a point guard, you kind of had to be a floor general. You know what I'm saying? So if you were falling, so was your team. So I took that to heart, and I was just always the hardest worker in the room during high school. I went to Holy Cross here in San Antonio, and I would text my coach, hey coach, I know we're not having practice in the morning, but can you please pick me up at 5 a.m.? I really want to get reps in. We have a game coming up, X, Y, and Z, even though we had 2-a-days later after school. And he's like, sure, Bri, I got you. Would open up the gym for me. Hey coach, I know it's a weekend, I'm really sorry, but can I, like, yeah, girl, let's go, let's do it. And so I think that like just knowing that I had a purpose, and I was just very intentional on what I had to do, and I understood my role, right? And so when I was about to go to graduate high school and then go to college for basketball, I tore my ACL senior night. So I tore every ligament in here, which forced me into a really hard rehab. And, you know, it was a really, really hard time, because it's like you work so long for something just for it to be taken away from you in an instant. And not that I couldn't have gotten myself back to where I was, but every time I would shift, my knee would come out, right?
You're still prone to injury.
Yeah, you're still prone to injury. And in that moment, I made the decision that I would rather give this up than to not be able to run with my son whenever I had that in that time. Because at that time, I was 18. Wow. I didn't even think that. But, like, there was nothing to be like, okay, I'm pregnant. You know what I'm saying? That was just like, I just know in the future, that's what I want, not this. So I had to make that hard shift to redirecting my focus. And then, okay, I was just lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do, because for so long it was just basketball, right? I'm going to college. That's going to pay my college, X, Y, and Z. And so then whenever I went to college at UTSA, not a lot of people know this, but I ended up getting like a 1.7 GPA. It was so bad. I was not focused at all. But during high school, I was like a top 5 student. Like, I know how to study, right? And so that really like humbled me, you know. It's like, okay, what do I want? I had no idea what I wanted to do. Do I want to be a nurse? I know I like to serve people, so I guess I'll be a nurse, right? And I loved anatomy. I loved physiology. I loved the body. So then during the rehab, I started to fall in love with that process of, my coaches helping me get there and feel good about myself, all of it. So then my passion came from my own journey of, man, I was at rock bottom. I felt like I was just so inflamed. My leg looked like a noodle, and to get from there to there, all it took was a mindset shift and work to be done. How can I show other people how to do this, And so, yeah, I was going to school for that, but then I got my personal trainer certification along the way, and
Let's go.
it just kind of transformed itself to where I took my love of physiology and anatomy and making people feel good, and it kind of has just been there for that. But as far as my mentality goes, it was just my coaches who really did instill that in me of you have something, use it and take it. I never knew what that was. And I don't even think they probably knew at the time, but they were just always like, Bri, watch this, Bri, watch this, Bri, watch this, do this, do this. And obviously being a point guard, floor general in basketball, you do have to navigate everyone. Everyone has to be in a certain position in order to be successful, right? If I moved this way, I knew she was going to move this way, and I had to do this in order to give her that chance to score. And so I took that same mentality to everything I do now, is if I move a certain way, everyone's going to shift. So I have to make sure that they shift where they're supposed to. That way they could get the end result they want.
It's beautiful, man. I feel like you combined the fire competitive aspect that you had with your passion to serve other people. Mm-hmm. And, I'll tell you, I will say this, you're very mature. Very mature. And as a business owner, I will tell you, I own 18 different companies. You're going to go far. I just know it. There's no doubt in my mind, just based off of what you're telling me. And I'm going to give you a life lesson that I learned in my journey that you've already figured out, but I'm going to put the pieces together because this was something that was big for me. Everything changes when you get introduced to a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Everything. And who you are, if you're built on non-kingdom principles, I didn't have God. Maybe he was always there begging for me to open the door, but I always closed it because I was very egotistical. If I ever got somewhere in my life, I always said me, just me. And that's how I've always been. And I've been the lone wolf in my family. I'm one of 6 kids. My mother was an orphan. Her mother gave her up and then died in a plane crash about 2 weeks later. All I had was my mom. My dad was an abuser, manipulator, narcissist. Beat the crap out of me and my brothers and sisters till we were black and blue. We would get taken into homes. Let me think of the worst things that could ever happen to children. That was where my dad was. And he was a nightmare, almost like a demon in my eyes. I love him to death, though, and I pray that he's in heaven and that he's been forgiven by the Father. But when I look at these things, he died about a year ago, but when I look at these things and I think about where I was at, I was coming from a big place of trauma, big place. So I had a lot to prove, given the circumstances where I came from. I always felt like anybody that I ever loved that believed in me doubted me. And so that fueled me to want to get further. Anger and rage is only going to take you so far. Yeah. Sooner or later, you got to have grace for everything that has ever happened in your life. And that was a big lesson for me. But I was at a point where I was not coachable. I was also not humble. And I didn't feel like I needed to be because I spent so long being humble with where I was at circumstantially. I knew that there were places that I couldn't go. I knew that there was things that I couldn't do. And I'm a felon, so I spent some time. When I was done with all of that and I got out, I just felt like the whole world was against me. So I was going to be against the whole world. Right. And that mentality put me in a box for so long. And you don't have that mindset. I don't see it in you at all. And maybe there's a pinch of that in there to prove themselves, but I doubt it's overflowing with the Lord. And I feel God's love working through you. And so when I think of these things, I went to pay. I didn't want to pay for a mentor. My business partner was like, our business is in shambles. It's COVID. They were shutting our office down. He's like, we need to do something or we're going to lose everything. And I said, we don't need anybody's help. I'll carry this whole office. Get me on the phone and I'll call every single person that wants to sell their house and I'll buy those houses. We will figure it out. We'll source the money. Yeah. And so he was like, nope, Q, I'm not going to keep doing it your way because your way is driving us into the ground. And so I said, okay, whatever. And I walked out. He charged my card $35,000 to pay for some dude I've never heard of in my whole life. And I flew out to El Paso to go meet this guy. And he was a God-fearing man. He was the first person who really brought me close to the Lord, if I'm being honest. And I remember at the time, I was severely overweight. I was 448 pounds, and I had sleep apnea, so I was sleeping with like an oxygen tank on my mouth. And I was trying to figure out what it was that I was going to do with the business that I had built, because it was starting to go upside down, and everything was shifting. And I made this man, and we went. I was so angry that we even paid for it, because it was money that we didn't need, that we didn't have. And in my head, I'm like, there's just no way we're paying for this right now. I get to El Paso, I meet this guy, and I'm just like, who the hell does this guy think he is? Like, I know what I'm capable of. This guy isn't going to qualify me and tell me what I'm already qualified for.
Right.
Like, in my eyes, I was just like, he was trying to show me all of these things, the systems, the operational aspect of it, his offices, his warehouses, his cars. He picked us up in like a brand new Tesla. He bought like a Lamborghini Huracan like the day before. A very humble man, although he had those things, very much full of love. Mm. And although I was being arrogant the whole time, not listening to him, anything he tried to show me, I was like, I'm gonna have that 10 times over one day. Like, I know it. This guy was doing about 600 million a year building new homes in El Paso. And so I'm just like blown away, kind of, sort of, but still not thinking that it was anything impressive. Right. By the time the night was over, we had just got back from a strip club. Okay. This isn't a version of me that I was proud of yet.
Okay.
This is BC, before Christ, right? And so when I got back from the strip club, my boys had fell asleep. He let us sleep in his house. And I'm awake still, and I'm processing everything that I learned that day.
Right.
And he sits down with me, and I'll never forget this. He said, "What's your deal, man?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "I've been trying to help you all day, and you won't accept anything that I'm telling you. Like, you came to me with problems." I said, whoa, my business partner did. I didn't. I know my problems. I own them. I started getting defensive. You know, and he was just like, you don't have to tell me what's wrong with me. I know what's wrong with me. I'll deal with it when I deal with it. Who are you? You're not my dad. Like, literally started projecting things that I grew up with when I was a kid.
Yes.
You know, and so like in this moment, he's just like, "Quentin, I'm just trying to help you. And out of both of your friends that are here, you're the one who has the most potential." And I said, "What do you mean?" He's just like, "You got the voice, you got the gift, you got the gab, you got everything, man. You've built this company and your friends are literally with you because you bring so much to the table." I'll be honest, I built the business without my partner. My other best friend that was there, he clinged to anything that I did because money fell out of my pockets. Yeah. I had the wrong people in my corner in this time frame, but they were influencing me that I needed them. And they were not the best influences. If they're making me go to a strip club, well, I got a wife at home. Right. Not okay, right? So I'm not proud of these things, but I'll tell you what, almost all of y'all's favorite influencers that are watching this in my space, I've been in a strip club with them before. I'll tell you this straight to y'all's faces, ain't nobody that you follow is free of sin. Right. We're all born sinners, absolutely, right? But it's how we choose to live and how we give ourselves grace for the wrong things that we've done and how we align ourselves with the Lord. 1,000%. And so when I think of these things, right, I just remember thinking, it's just like, what mentality, what got you here? Why are you thinking like this? I read a book. I know you're a personal trainer. You're going to love it. It's called Relentless, right?
I've read that one 20 times over. In high school, that guided me.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the mindset that you were describing, that I have to be great at what I do. I'm just like the mama mentality, that same thing. And so when I think of that book, I just remember I was so obsessed with the idea of what MJ was. He called him a cleaner. A
cleaner, not a closer.
You get a cooler, closer, cleaner. Cooler make it, and then they just lose themselves. Mm-hmm. Closer has a good season, but they're living in the shadow of someone else, never a good career. Cleaner changes the way the game is played. Yeah. And I told him, I said, "Bro, I am a cleaner through and through. Like, you tell me that you're great, I promise you I'll be greater than you. Yeah. And I'll show you what I am and what I'm capable of." And he was like, "Q, who you proving yourself to? You ain't got to prove yourself to me. I already know you're great." Mm-hmm. And then I just started crying because I was thinking about all the times that I let my dad down, all the times that my mom told me all I was ever going to be was a drug dealer, all the times that my brothers and sisters closed the door on me when I was trying to show them something that I believed in, that I was passionate in. Now, I love all of my siblings, so don't ever think that I'm speaking negatively about them. My mother, she'd be my mom 1,000 times over in a million lifetimes. Right. You know, my brothers and sisters, I would love them until the end of time. And so when I'm thinking about this, right, I'm just like, what was the main thing that I wanted to do when I was a kid? Protect them from my dad. Mm. That's it. And so he's like, "That's where that comes from?" And I said, "Yeah." So he's just like, "Dude, let's be honest, Quentin. You want to be this cleaner. Look at Michael Jordan. Google him right now." And I remember this documentary just came out. It was called, it was Michael Jordan. He was talking about his career. I forgot what it is called. It's
It
like
was on Netflix?
Yes, it was.
It was the with the Bulls, Chicago Bulls.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, soaked that all up too.
It's such a great show, right?
Yeah.
But you look at Michael Jordan, he's drunk the whole time.
Yeah.
In his interviews. He's an alcoholic, right? And so I'm just thinking like, he's like, that's what a washed up champion looks like, man. Did he do great things that transcend beyond our lives? Will he be remembered forever? Absolutely. But look at how many rings he had. And so I said, 6, great number. And he's like, okay, but who did he play for? And I mean, he played for the Bulls. He said, okay, well, who was the coach? Count his rings. And I Googled him. I never Googled Phil Jackson before. 13 rings.
Yeah.
13. Double what Michael Jordan has. Longevity. And he says, Q, you want to be the greatest so bad, but let me tell you something. The greatest is going to come from you when you bring out the greatness in other people.
Absolutely.
Because Michael Jordan wouldn't have been that great if he didn't have Phil Jackson. And so he's like, if your purpose isn't in alignment with that and you want to be the greatest that there ever was, I'm here to tell you that you have the potential to bring the greatness out of other people. And if you just tapped into that and listened to me, I could help you in ways that you could never imagine. After that conversation, I gave up alcohol the next day.
Yeah.
And I haven't drank since. I'm 5 years sober from alcohol. I
Amen.
stopped drinking June
Amen.
27th of 2020. Next month will be 5 years
Wow.
since I've touched alcohol.
There is so much clarity in a sober mind.
Yep.
For sure.
And I'm just so like blessed to have met him because he made me make that push. He introduced God to me. He prayed over me. He even like brought me into like real trauma that I hadn't looked at, and I was running away from it.
Right.
You know, and I talked to you about Vanilla Ice, right? About
Yeah.
how he runs toward it, not away from it. And I know that's a crazy story. I'll explain that on another episode because that's a whole nother long thing. But Vanilla Ice is actually really great. But for anybody that's listening to this, man, sometimes the greatness comes from you when you've brought it out in other people.
Absolutely, that's
And
impact.
when I see you yesterday, you were doing that to that girl that you were training in the gym.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to interrupt because I could tell you guys were in sync. She was there, you were present with your client. You were trying to bring out the greatness in her.
Right.
You know, everything that you want to become, Bri, is on the other side of how much you are willing to bless other people with what you have been given. Because you've been given such a gift. You've been given these traumatic experiences, of course, right? And sometimes we resent them because we're like, why are we going through them? But let me tell you what, that testimony that you got, that's going to be the differential factor and where you're going to go and where you're going to stay. And if you just keep talking about it, you keep throwing it out there the way that you are, especially the way you're being vulnerable on this podcast. Man, you know, Yami, I know we're the only two in here. Let's clap for her because she's really doing this, you know? And I see it, and it's just such a beautiful thing to push through all of these things that you're going through. And I know it ain't easy, man. I know what it's like to hold it down. I know when you got them demons trying to crawl into your brain.
Oh, yeah.
And you fight them all the time, right? I just know for a fact that you've grown so much and that God has such a big plan for you. And there's going to be so many more things that are going to happen. And I can't wait till you go through them. Because when you're my age, I'll be 43, 44, you know, and that'll be something to see. And I hope to see it.
Thank you.
What are the plans that you have for the business right now? What direction do you think you're going to take it here within the next couple of years? Let the people who are listening know. Because I know we got some people who are watching and might want to get into fitness too.
For
And you're a
sure.
coach, you know, so
I
this is
am.
your floor for that. I want to know.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, as of right now, it's just like online and in person. Online, I've had clients worldwide and even, nationally. But as far as what I want to do is just continue to do more outreach for women, with Muscle Mommy Club, maybe do like a nonprofit and to be able to help women who have been through like domestic violence and, all of these things, miscarriages, single moms, trying to make it but can't really prioritize themselves, things like that. And then we have the Muscle Mommy Club podcast coming up to where it's like
Let's
a women's
go.
guide. Yeah, I mean, like you said, the business is so saturated, right? But people gravitate to an individual because of their heart and their service and their
Amen.
mission, So often we can feel that imposter syndrome. But there's no imposter syndrome if God put it on your heart. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where I'm feeling when I made the decision to jumpstart the podcast. It was in March of this year. It's been on my heart forever, but just haven't moved on it. It just wasn't the right time. And so I had opened up my Bible to Joshua, and it was where God was calling Joshua into a time of transition to
Yep.
be able to lead these people from here to there.
Moses
And
had just died,
Yes,
right?
Moses had just
He's
died.
been called and he didn't feel that, he was like, you got the wrong guy.
You got the wrong guy. And he was like, no, I have the right person. All you got to do is listen to me and obey. And that was the first, like how I read my Bible is not how maybe you should read your Bible. I just open it, God, speak to me, boom, it's there. And that was the first thing of God calling Joshua into a transition of leadership. And so that was the first thing, was like, all right, God, like, you are calling me to do this. I'm scared. I'm anxious. So was Joshua. It was a big task to undergo. But I know that you are calling me to lead these people from here to the promised land. And this is where I have to go, whether the promised land is their mentality shift, how they feel about themselves, how they choose to show up, so many things. And so I just decided to kickstart it. We launch that tomorrow. So, what is it? May 14th.
Yeah.
And I'm just so excited to embark on that journey. And it's called, like I said, Muscle Mommy Club Podcast, but it's not just about fitness. It's how to navigate life in and out of the gym, because I just went through 75 hard. It was a more of an emotional and spiritual experience more than it was physical. Yeah, it gave me a great physical form, lost 20 pounds with it. Great, can't complain about that. But what it did for me was more emotional and spiritual, and being able to sit with myself. Instead of being so intense, I was intentional. And a lot of people think that the fitness journey is that you have to go all in. And yeah, your mindset has to go all in, but your body also needs rest. But when you're resting, you also be intentional with that, whether that's stretching or this, same with your spirit, same with your emotions, same with your mind, right? You don't have to be so intense all the time. And so through that, that's how my mission for the podcast of like talking about, my miscarriage, that's something that's not talked about. Divorce with co-parenting, dating and having a co-parent, all of these things that women go through, hormones.
Bringing light to it, honestly.
Yes. Yeah. Bringing light to really hard topics, and then also some light topics. It's not always so heavy, just sharing things. We're going to have fun with it. But yeah. And so another thing I really want to do, I really haven't spoken much to anyone, but the people who know is like, I want to own a gym. And so one of the gyms that the mission for that would be, kind of like a place and a hub for women to be able to like have childcare, but also like do their business, especially single moms who don't have the support at home, to be able to come and work there while also there's childcare, so they don't put themselves off anymore. And it's just, obviously getting the funding for that and wanting to push that mission. That is something that I really want to do right now. Doesn't really look like that, but I know in a couple of years, I just see that for myself. I see something forming in that aspect. But right now, I guess we start with the podcast and be able to do more outreach. We've gotten into the community. How can we get out into the world? And so that is my mission. And I just feel like God has placed something on my heart. Don't know what it is, but I feel like with everything I'm going through, He's piecing the puzzle together. And so I'm excited to see what He comes up with.
That's great. I'll tell you what, I'll sponsor your first 5 podcast videos if you want to come in here and film in my studio.
That'd be amazing.
I'll do them for free. Just give me a shout out, Infinite Productions at the end, and we're solid. Deal?
Absolutely, deal.
All right, cool. Man, this has been one of my favorite podcasts. I think Yami can attest to this because she's done about 4 for me so far. This has been great, really, man. So for my people that are watching this, what's a message that you can give to somebody? Maybe they're at home and they're lacking confidence. Maybe they're at home and they're a single mom. Maybe they just lost a baby too. Who knows, like what people go through. What is your message to that person that's in that dark place right now?
You are never too far gone. You are never too far gone. And usually our motivation is a byproduct of our action, right? So we have to move. Nothing happens if we don't move. A car doesn't go unless you turn it on and drive. A boat doesn't go, like a rowing boat doesn't go unless you're actually doing the action to do it. So I know it's hard, and I know there's times where you feel like you want to quit, but on the other side of your sorrow, on the other side of your sadness, there is a purpose to your pain, and all you got to do is just get up and move, whether that's a walk, whether that's reaching out to someone to talk, whether that's looking for resources in your community, or just connecting with other women or other individuals. You are never too far gone to reclaim your life and your body and your heart back. And all it takes is you showing up every day with the intention and the confidence that you are exactly who you think yourself to be. And why not think of yourself as someone who is here for a given purpose? You're still breathing, you still have life. And so nurture that, and I hope that translates in the way that I'm expressing it.
It's
but
beautiful.
Reclaim. That's been my mission for this past years. Reclaim. You're never too far gone, ever.
Never.
But all it takes is you showing up, because God will only move if you do.
Amen. I really appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank
Bri.
you.
It
Are you
means
kidding
a
me?
lot of it. This has just been great.
I feel so refreshed. I'm ready to take on the day.
Let's get it. We got to go to the gym after
We
this.
do.
Right?
We do have to go to the
Yeah,
gym. Yep.
yeah.
Hang
Guys,
there.
I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in today's episode. You guys make sure you follow Bri's amazing journey. I'm going to drop her Instagram handle and also any links to Muscle Mommy. If you guys want to get involved with what she's doing, you guys make sure you check the comment section. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Let's get it.